Welcome back to Real Voices of Happy Valley, Dave and Viv's podcast about the fascinating people of the Calder Valley. Today, we're carrying on with Jack Straw, Viv.
Well, not in that sense, but you... What are you suggesting? No. Well, because you talked to him, didn't you? And there was far too much to fit in one episode because it's just so full of interesting stories and things. So you split it into two.
Yes, the first one was about his work at festivals. And the second one, this one is about his move from Todmorden to North Ronaldsay.
Yeah, which is a far-off part of the Orkney Islands. And we went to see him there, didn't we?
We did, yes.
Him and Alex, a few years ago now, about 4 years ago maybe.
Before the pandemic.
Yeah. And it's just a different world, and getting there, well, never mind getting to John O'Groats and then to Orkney, Kirkwall, you then get on an 8-seater plane, which Jack mentions. Mm-hmm. What he doesn't say is that in order to board the plane, you have to step on a beer crate to get into it, and they weigh you before you get on. And people... I think because people use it to go to Morrison's in Kirkwall and they don't want them carrying too much with them. But, yeah, it's very cosy, and they had to recently change the rules so that any dogs have to be in a dog carrier because the dogs were getting excited on the plane and licking the pilot, and he didn't like that.
Yes, because you
can't blame him.
It's only a tiny plane, so you're sitting immediately behind the pilot.
Yeah,
if you're in the front seat.
Yeah, there was nothing about people licking the pilot, but you know they didn't want dogs doing it.
We didn't have that problem on our way back from Australia earlier in the year, did we?
No, you're also far removed from the pilot in normal planes, but there, it's like you said, it's like a bus. Yeah, a little one at that.
And the airport is a bit like a bus stop.
Yeah, really. It is, yeah.
With a couple, a handful of seats in it.
And everything's so tiny that when I left my jacket at Kirkwall Airport, which I am wont to do, leaving various things at different places, they just rang up the airport and said, oh, could you bring Viv's jacket back? She left it in such and such a place. And they did.
You just put it on the next flight.
Yeah.
It is quite a different thing, isn't it? Yeah. I found when we were coming down into land at the airport, bus stop, there's a medical centre right next to the runway. And when we were coming down, it was just like that opening sequence from Father Ted. The house looked exactly the same.
Yeah, no. Going on to Craggy Island.
But fortunately, it landed next to the medical centre rather than right in through the front window.
Yeah, and Jack mentioned the bird sanctuary as well, which is a major part of the island, isn't it? Because it's also the pub.
It's the bar, yes.
The bar, yeah, and a hostel for folks staying a night or two.
Yes, often students who are interested in birds and bird research and what have you. It was good though, because I remember saying to Jack, can we go for a pint anywhere? And he just phoned up the bird sanctuary and said, can you open the bar? We're on our way round.
Yeah, it's amazing, isn't it? Yeah.
And getting to the bar from Jack's, it's a nice walk along the beach, stepping in and out and in between seals.
Yeah.
It was fantastic. And Alex went for a swim, didn't she? She was very disappointed because she was only swimming with porpoises and not actual dolphins.
Yeah. And the odd seal got in and had to swim round with her. Yeah. That's how she starts her day.
Yeah. At the other end of the island from the bird sanctuary is the lighthouse. And there's two. There's what they call, I think, the Old Beacon, which is an 18th century thing, and the new lighthouse, which was built as recently as 1854.
Oh, well, modern.
Yeah. I think Jack mentions that in our chat as well.
Yeah.
Anyway, that's perhaps enough of me and you. Let's have a listen to Jack, shall we?
Yeah, take it away, Jack.
And where do you live now, then?
I live on a very small island called North Ronaldsay, which is part of Orkney archipelago, just off north coast of Scotland.
But you come back down quite a lot.
Yeah, at least once every month or two to see my mum and my sister, my nephews,
So,
and all my friends.
so what's it like living on a small island off the north coast of Scotland?
It's very interesting because you just don't know what it's going to be like. So when we went, I think the population when we went in 2017 was about 50. Down from a peak in 1880s of about 500. So there were about 50 people, and we've lived there for 6 years now, and it's a microcosm of the world. So everything that happens in the world, everything that happens with media, politics in the world, you see it all happening in miniature on North Ronaldsay. Different factions, small factions of people wanting one thing and somebody else doesn't want it, and somebody trying to do something really good, somebody else thinking they don't particularly want that or they don't agree with it, and so there's that side of it. But it's a great place to live. It's a beautiful island. It's very flat, so that it was really bad in the past for shipwrecks around the coast, because mariners out at sea just couldn't see it until they actually hit it. So it's got a big lighthouse on it now, which is the tallest land-based lighthouse in the United Kingdom, which is called Dennis Head Light.
Is it? I didn't realise it.
It is. They always say it's the tallest land-based one. So there must be one on a rock somewhere that's taller than that. So we've got that, but in the whole, it's a very, very, very strong little community, and it was a self-subsistence community that could actually look after themselves, and going back hundreds and hundreds of years, and they've still got a bit of that left. That they've not been disconnected from providing for themselves. They always said that when they actually got supplies to the island, they only got things like sugar and tea and coffee and tobacco, because they could virtually provide everything else for themselves. They had a really good tradition of brewing all their own beer, and they've got, of course, North Ronaldsay got it's famous seaweed eating sheep. So they had these sheep to keep them fed in the winter, and they had all this stuff out at sea as well. And it's a fertile island, so they used to grow crops on it, and they grow all their own vegetables, a lot of turnips, neeps as they are up there, and tatties. So they had all the water supplies were wells, so every house had a well. And they didn't get major electricity till the 1980s.
Oh wow!
Which is confusing, because everybody up there calls the electricity the hydro, because
that's how it's generated then.
Yeah, it's from Scottish Hydro. So until then, of course, they had electricity, but they all had their own generators. So everyone on North Ronaldsay is really good with electrics, because they just did all their own electrics, and they did all their own plumbing, they did all their own car mechanic things, so they're very able to do everything up there. And it's funny, when people come to live up there, they wonder about how to get things there and how to do things, and they very soon realise that they can do anything up there, because they've been doing it for so long. And things like building materials and things, they all seem to get something there if they need it, and if it's something that's a large item, they sometimes somebody might get a static caravan or something, but they always seem to manage to lift it off the ferry and manoeuvre it somewhere on island between themselves and get it sighted there without.
So the self-proficiency is still there very much.
It really is. It really is. Yes, and helping each other. If somebody really needs a hand, they'll be there to help each other. And I mean, I could see last night that they'd got that the power was off up there. So they've got a really good WhatsApp group now, which is good for them letting each other know that when power's off.
Yes. Oh, that's
so that's a modern innovation that works really well. And it's got other things that are quite unique. It has a bird observatory because it's on a migration route for birds. So you get a lot of birds dropping in and unusual birds. So in 80s, Kevin Woodbridge set up the bird observatory. So they get a lot of young volunteers up there doing various things with studying birds. So there's that going on Ireland too, and that brings a lot of visitors up there. And transport to North Ronalds is interesting because our main transport is an 8-seater aeroplane, which is it's a model called the Britain Norman Islander, which they call it the Land Rover of the air, because it's pretty tough and sturdy, don't go so fast, and they get 3 flights a day from Orkney mainland, and it only takes quarter of an hour. So it's a bit like catching a bus from Todtebden Bridge, really. Except you're just up in air.
So, how did you end up in Orkney then?
Well, to us, Orkney, all we ever used to think about Orkney was the fact that we liked, musically, we liked Saltfish 40, Douglas Montgomery and Brian Cromarty, who are from Orkney, and Chris Drever. And so we were curious about where they lived. And then also, I've got a friend from Orkney, Evelyn, who lives in Huddersfield, and she had a little cottage up there, and she said we could go stay if we'd like to do. So me and my fiancée, she is now Alex, started going up there in 2013. In fact, the first time we went up there was immediately after 2013 Beverley Folk Festival. And Alex just drove us all the way up to Thurso, and we went up to Orkney and we stayed on South Ronaldsay. And we really enjoyed it. So we carried on going back for our holidays. And then in 2014, Royal Mail pensioned me off, and I started looking on Rightmove at houses for sale in Orkney. And there were a lot of them that came up on what we call the Northern Isles. That were they used to use this term for them, that they say that it was in need of renovation. When it meant it was a ruin. So we went. So
in need of a lot of renovation.
A lot of renovation. Yeah, that's it. They'd be roofless walls. So then we went and had a look at a few of these ruins on a few islands. We went to look at one on Ede that Alex wouldn't even let me go inside here.
Oh right.
That's where this man. There a man who lived there that used to. He used to sell things on eBay, and it was known as the Pink Bunny Man of Ede, because
an intriguing title.
Well, yeah, because at some stage, the story was that some celebrity, which could have been Kerry Katona, had a pink rabbit.
Oh.
So he started getting white rabbits and dyeing them pink, and selling them on eBay. That was the story, and then at some stage he got picked up by police. But he lived in this house that we went to look at that was really in need of renovation. It's called South Park. So we went there, and then but Ede's a lovely island, but not that house. And then the next summer 2017, there were one that came up for sale in May that on North Ronaldsay,
which is the northernmost of the islands.
Which is the northernmost of the islands. And my friend Evelyn, who's from Orkney, had been with her husband John, and she'd said to me, "It's well out there, Jack. It really is well out there." So I says to Alex, "Well, can we go to North Ronaldsay this year and have a look at this house?" So off we went to North Ronaldsay. So we stayed at Bird Observatory and went to look at this house, and it wasn't in need of lots of renovation. And it was a very good price for a 2-bedroom detached house with a big modern barn. It was £85,000.
That sounds quite cheap to anyone who lives in Calder Valley.
It was. Well, I only had I had my little lump sum from Royal Mail, and that's exactly how much it was. So we had to look round it, and this lady called Anne Tullock came down and showed us round it, and I just said, if we offer you that much, will you accept it? And she said yes. So that was in the July of 2017, and we went back down to Calder Valley, and then sort of started to think about what we'd decided to do, because we didn't know what it to be like at all, or moving to a community of, as it was then, about 50 people. So most of what people were saying about it at the time was a community in decline, and not enough people to run the services. So that was a bit worrying. The last child had just left the school to go down to grammar school in Kirkwall. But we arrived there in September, and we didn't know if we were going to stay there all year round, but we soon decided we really liked it, and we've been there for the last 6 years. Mm-hmm. So it did work out well.
So it must be quite different from living in Calderdale.
It's very different from living in Calderdale in the way that there's so few people, but because my mum and my sister live up at Sowerall on Tops, above Todmorden, the winds are very similar.
I can imagine.
Because people up there would say you'll have to get used to winds, and actually they're very similar winds, I'd say. And Alex always said that Orkney's like the tops around Calder Valley would be if all Calder Valley were full of water.
Oh, right.
So, and there are all those,
well, it would, wouldn't it? Yeah.
Yeah, it would. And there are all those single-track roads that's just like the road that goes over at Moor from Sowerall that goes down onto Burnley Road. It's exactly...
Except, of course, by boat or however you'd get there, you'd still have Manchester and Leeds not that far away. I mean, North Ronaldsay is a very, very long way from any cities, isn't it?
It is. It's... you just... When we went, you just have to realise that you're coming to a very different way of life that's gone on for hundreds and hundreds of years, and so there's part of you that thinks you're going to be first folk from England that's ever arrived there, which you soon get over when you realise that half the people that already live there have moved there up from England at some stage.
Oh, right.
So you've already got that going on, but since we went, the population's gone up to about 68 now.
Oh, wow.
So there were a family came from Devon who have 3 small children, so that got the school reopened again. Mm-hmm. And then there were a young woman that came up from not so far from Whitby, actually, Ravenscar. So she came with a couple of little children, and then there's a family just moved up from West Cumbria, from somewhere near Whitehaven, and they've got 2 little children.
It's quite an interesting mix of people then.
It is an interesting mix of people.
But they must all have some kind of sense of adventure about them.
They've got to do. Mm-hmm. If just the logistics of moving your household goods up there is enough to test people, because you've got to get it your household goods in a container that goes up to the pier at Kirkwall and then gets brought up to North Ronaldsay on the smaller ferry, and then it gets lifted off, big crane, and you have to get somebody to bring it up with a tractor then. Everything gets moved about with a tractor.
Yes, we just phoned some guy up with a removals firm, and he came and collected our stuff. Well, they came and collected our stuff and took it a few miles down the road to Todmorden. Your move is a bit more exciting than that. They are. But they've been doing things differently for so long in Orkney that they've got a way of doing everything. Mm-hmm. So it's same with shopping. I can still do an old-fashioned co-op style home delivery, where I just ring co-op up in Kirkwall, and I can just tell them what I want over the phone, and they'll just ring me up at tea time then and say, so this is how much you owe us, and they'll just put it down to pier to come up on ferry for me. Right.
So you don't have to. You save a lot of time on not actually going to shops. Mm. But I suppose a lot of people do that in Calder Valley now.
I think increasingly that's the case. Yes. So what do you miss about the valley?
trees.
No trees up there.
No, there's mature trees in Orkney. There's round back where Bishop's Palace is upside of St Magnus Cathedral in Kirkwall. There's proper big, tall sycamores, and there's a sycamore on the main street in Kirkwall, on Albert Street, known as the Big Tree. It's a bit, it's as well known and beloved in Orkney as the sycamore that got cut down not long ago. Adrian's Wall was. It's been there a long time, and so there's a few big trees, but on North Ronaldsay, you just get sort of shrubs, really, which is good for migrating birds.
So you've got the extra birds.
You do
migrating past that you don't have in the valley, but
you have exotic birds sometimes. But I always feel a bit sorry for them because they're just thousands of miles off course. These little exotic birds, and you get say a Siberian blue robin.
Oh,
but it's 2,000 or 3,000 miles off of where it should be. And you don't know if it's going to survive then, because sometimes they'll blow from way off in east, and sometimes they'll get blown across Atlantic. So you'll get something from North America, and I don't know what happens to them, whether they manage to eke out alive somewhere,
or find their way back.
But they're very popular amongst people that have the lists of birds that they see every year, because they're so exotic.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so what else in the valley are you missing?
Well, what else am I missing? Well, I miss alt music. And just seeing lots of people. There's lots of very friendly people in Calder Valley. Okay. And just like, if you go down to Todmorden, you go into Tod Market and get yourself some Eccles cakes or something like that, and go in library, and it's all those people that you see on a regular basis that you don't see as much. And I miss. Well, I suppose I miss the exercise of walking up to Sourhall as well.
No hills in.
It's a big hill.
But there's no hills where you are now.
No. The braes. They do call them braes on North Ronaldsay, but they're probably only a rise of 2 or 3 foot. you can sort of feel them as you're walking, as you start going downhill instead of uphill. But they're very gentle. So there's no big hills. But Calder Valley is just such a lovely place. I was thinking about why I went to live in Calder Valley from Huddersfield, and I know I've said about one of the draws of it were that we wanted to buy a house with some land because my dad and my sister had some horses, and there were nothing came up for sale with land in Huddersfield, even in late 90s. And there were always 1 or 2 little small holdings in Calder Valley. So and then I wanted to come for Trades Club, of course, as well for all the music. But also, I just thought about this. I needed somewhere where I could go to carry on going to work at Royal Mail in West Yorkshire. So it couldn't be too far away. And Calder Valley is sort of one of the most beautiful bits of West Yorkshire. That's still within West Yorkshire metro travel area. He's just on the far western edge of that, I think. So that were really important as well. So I could manage to get. Well, first of all, I just used to go all the way to Huddersfield on bus and train, and then sometimes my brother-in-law gave me a lift on the back of his motorbike over Blackstone Edge, but then. I managed to get moved to Halifax, so that wasn't so bad then. I could just get on one train to Halifax then.
Yeah. So, sounds like you have a really interesting life with all this of working at festivals, even though you're supposed to be retired. You've been working at lots of festivals, moving out to almost a desert island. It feels like that for some of us, and still back in Todmorden frequently.
I try to go back out at least every couple of months. Every month to 2 months, because I like to see everybody. But I'm just getting back into doing that again after lockdown, because with the lockdown, I lost a lot of my confidence for travelling about on my own. So I've got back to where I was before all lockdown now, and which is really good because I do like travelling about.
Yes, you do. Okay, well, thanks a lot for that, Jack. That's really interesting. Joining our list of interesting, fascinating people from the Calder Valley.
Well, I hope you've got enough to make a programme out of all that ramblings.